Okay.
There you go. Okay. Oh, so. Molly.
There you go.
So you want me to record it?
Okay, good good evening. So tonight I'd like to discuss some halachas that involve tzedakah money, and specifically money that's been put already into a pushka. What is the status of that money, and vis-a-vis numerous halachas, certain halachas. Now, if somebody could maybe find a connection to the parsha, I'll be very happy. I don't have any particular connection to the parsha. I came to this through other ways, and but Lamaisa, we're in the tkufa of Utshuva, Utzvila, Utstaka, Virnus Revzera. Rabbeinu Yonah says, Rabbeinu Yonah Shar Sheni discusses the Aseret Shmitzhuva. He says Aseret Shmitzhuva, how a person has to be extremely focused and involved in nothing other than the impending din of the Yom Kippur. So, but the Svarim say, Rabbi Kotler does say, for us it's the God's elbow that way. I mean, it's not just, we can't just afford to wait for Aseret Shmitzhuva. Aseret Shmitzhuva, a whole elbow we have to be pashut. We have to be already focused on the Yom Meron and etc. So, Tshuva, Tefillah, Tzedakah, Mervin Shragzer is certainly a appropriate time to look about some Hilchos Tzedakah. A lot of fascinating halachas here. So I'm going to start with the following thing. Hilchos in Yeridea, Simin, Reish Nun Tes. The Mechaber says, Ha'omer Selazu Tzedakah. Person says, this coin is for Tzedakah. Osha Omer Harei Olai Sel Tzedakah, Defrisha. Or he says, I take upon myself to give a sell amount of money, a sell to tzedakah, and then he takes out a coin, and he's mafresh that this will be the coin he's giving to fulfill his neder. Ad shelo bo yad gabai. As long as the money is not yet in the hands of the gabai tzedakah, who's going to see to it that it gets to the right address, to the lien. Yochel l'shanoso. You could change it. Being uvoso la'atzmo. Let's say you need to borrow the money and use it. You separate this coin for tzedakah, and then you want to buy something. It's the only money you have. You can use the money. Although you already set aside the tzedakah, you could use it and replace it. It's not by the gaba yet, so you can borrow for yourself. Being lahavos lechaveiro, or if somebody else asks, could you lend me some money for a couple of days, and the only money you have available is money which is already set aside for tzedakah. But it's not by the gaba yet, so yes, you could lend it to somebody else. Of course, it has to be complete achayis that it'll come back and get to its destination. But in the meantime, you're allowed to use that money for personal usage, for yourself or somebody else. That's Siv Aleph. Yifra Acher Dachlim, and you're replaced with other money. Siv Beis Mishabali Agabai, but once it's already in the hands of the Gabai, Osir Levoso. Bein Lo, Bein La'acher, Bein La'Gabai. Once the Gabai has it, and he took it on behalf of the Aniyan, at that point, it cannot be used for any other purposes, even whether it's the purpose of the donor, or the guy by himself, or third party makes no difference, it can't be used. Okay. So we see a very clear distinction between whether the money has reached not the ultimate destination of the Ani. I mean, once it's in the hands of the Ani, then it's up to the Ani. If he wants to lend you money, he can do whatever he wants with the money. But here, it's in any case, it's not actually physically in the hands of the Ani, but if it's in the hands of the Gabai, it's already at a point where you can't make any other use of it. Before that, you can. So the question is, many people have a Pushka in their house. And you may very well have a Pushka that's from a particular Mossad, a particular, maybe a yeshiva, maybe an orphanage, or a Meir Balanis, but you may have a Pushka that's came from a specific Mossad, and the money that's put in there is designated to be given to that Mossad. What is the status of that money when it's in the Pushka, and before it's been given over to the Mossad or even to the Gabai? Like here we have a local Gabai, right, who's in charge of the Mary Balanese. He gives out the Pushkas, and if anybody wants, and he'll collect it from you, he'll take the money from you. So, but meanwhile, the money's not in his hands, it's still in my house, but it's already in the Pushka. It's not simply a coin that designated that I took in order to give the stock, I've actually put into the pushka. Is that like it's by me, or is that like the guy? And the question basically boils down to: does that pushka, is that kona the money on behalf of the designated mosa? Is the pushka kona the money? Why may the pushka be kona the money? So, because there's a halacha that the kelim of a person could be kona for him. Something which is in a person's keli could potentially be kona, like a form of kinyan chatzer, just like a chatzer could be kona items for you. Something which comes in you. Somebody puts something into your chatzer in order to give it to you as a gift, something which is what you want. So your chatzer is kona, and even if you're unaware that you put it there, chatzer shalom kona shalom daito. Or even if something ends up in my chatzer, if it's something which can't leave the chatzer on its own, so it's considered to be shamor in the chatzer, so my chatzer is kona. So saying my kelim could be kona, but it does depend where they are, where the kelim. In the case of the chatzer, the whole property is mine. Here, the only thing that's mine, or in this case, the only thing that belongs to the mosa, is this little can, this little pushka. So the question, but it's in my house. So could the keli of the mosa be kona on behalf of the mosa when it's sitting in my house? So let's look now at Choshen Mishpah. Choshen Mishpah Siman Reish, Se'iv Gimel. It says Kelav Shel Adam, a person's kelim, Kol Makom Sheyesh Lo Rishus Lahanicho. Any place he has permission to place it, kona lo. It's kona for him. If you have a right to leave it there, it's not intruding. It's not encroaching on someone else. You have a right to put it there, then it's kona for you. So let's say you made a deal with somebody, a purchase, you made an arrangement, you agreed to buy something, he agreed to sell it, and he put it into your keli, your basket, which is in his house. He put the stuff aside now into your basket, so neither one of them could now back out of the deal. Both say, actually, Mom, I don't want to sell this, or I'll give him a different one, that one's too nice. You put it already into his keli, which is there, Brishus, so he's kona. He can't back out, and you can't back out. I mean, if they both agree to change the deal, okay, of course, that's the game thing. But but for one of them to unilaterally back out, he cannot do. The hareze kamisha hunchul bezok beisa. It's mamash like he put it to my house. Just like if he would put this stuff into my house, he can't change it. Like, I didn't pay him it. But he said, I changed mine, I don't want to sell it. Or like I said, I'm going to give you a different one. I don't want to give you that one. So, it's like, you gave it to me, you put it in my house, I'm kona. So, can't change. Okay. So the Mechaber goes on and says, "Lefichach ein kela shaladim kodem lo b'shus harabim." The lo because b'shus harabim, nobody is right. You can't just plunk your item down b'shus harabim. The lo b'shus hamocher elim kein amalo hamakne leichu kni b'kli zeh v'az kana imu b'shus hamocher. So the Mechaber concludes, "Ein kela shaladim kodem lo b'shus hamocher elim kein amalo hamakne leichu kni b'kli zeh." Yes. I want you to be able to be kona for this kli, and you could put it here. V'az kona imu b'shus hamocher. Now, the lush of the Mechaber is im amalo leichu kni. Zot the shach v'hu adin nasu rishus laricha sham. Hakeli kona. Same thing. Even if he didn't say be kona with this, but the mocher allowed the lokech to leave his keli there, so it's kona. Take us a turshim v'gashim to lo kaharam. Okay, so the Shach says that you don't need dafka, that you should tell them, be kona. I want, go ahead, when I put in this kli, I want you to be kona. As long as you, the mocher, gave me rishus to leave my keli in his property, in his house, in his property, then my keli can be kona for me, and if the mocher puts something in there of das to sell it to me, of course if he put it there by mistake, let's say the mocher thought it was his basket, and he was straightening up, and he put something into my basket thinking it was his. He had no intention to sell it to me or anything. I'm not kona, right? I mean, there was no das mark, there was nothing. But we're talking about where there was the intention to transfer a shus. He intended it. But just because you intend to transfer shus doesn't automatically make it transfer shus, right? If I want to sell you the safer and I go like this, it's still not yours, right? It didn't do anything. You agree to buy, I agree to sell it, and I push it towards you on the table here, it doesn't become yours. But if you pick it up and make a kinyan, it does. So what we're saying here too, this is a kinyan. If you have a keli there, and you have it there, even in my house, but with shus, and there is an intention to make a transfer, I want to make a transfer, I put your keli, that completes the transfer. And the shach says, even if you didn't say mefurish.
Is there enough, in the Gabi, in the tzedakah boxes that you were saying that they give you, I'm not taking a chrayas for it, and when I take it from you, it's not, I don't have the machshava that, okay, I'll put in there, maybe not, I don't know, I'm not taking responsibility that it may not get destroyed, ruined, maybe it'll get thrown out, whatever it might be. Or is it understood that no, you have this tzedakah box they took from this, what I said, you're responsible, you're going to take care of it, you're going to make sure that you get it back to me.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, but that's not the norm. I don't know if that's the norm.
Oh, okay, I said you made a lot of assumptions when you said you're not taking a chrayas,
Because people give you all these, you take it home or whatever, and you. But it doesn't mean that you're if it gets damaged, you're responsible. If someone steps on it, it breaks, then you have to.
Let's see what the post said. Okay, let's see what the post said. And it is so pashut, then maybe. So the first
disposable things that they give you.
Okay, the first side saying is that, and this many posts can say this. Amongst one of the names they call Ma'amar Mordechai, but one of the names that is that maybe more familiar with is the Shalshiv is Beis Yitzchak, right? Rabbi Yitzchak Shmelkish, a couple of Torahs ago. Rabbi Yitzchak Shmelkish, the Beis Yitzchak passes this way that the Pushka, a Pushka of a Moshe in your house has a din of it's the Kli of the thing. It's considered the Chatzer of that Moshe, and therefore when you put money into it, you are Kona right away. I'm not sure. He is. They are. The Mossad is coming right away. The money becomes theirs, and it's like it's at least bali ad gabai, because the chatzir is like it's like it's at least the hands of the gabai. And the mela at that point you couldn't borrow the money if you decide you're a little short and you want to pay the cleaning lady, and he says I know I just put a $20 bill in there, $20 bill in there last Erev Shabbos, and I need to pay the clean the help. Whatever, I'll take it, I'll put it back, I'll borrow it. I'll borrow the money. According to this, you can't. When it says you can't borrow the money because it belongs to the Maser. And what about if you want to change money? Let's say there's a lot of change in there and I need some change, so I want to put in a bill and take out the change. Could I do that? Well, so Chaim Kanievsky in the Sefer Derech Hamuna says no. He says you can't do that either. According to this Shita, which is the Shita of many poskim.
Did you give extra?
I'm sorry?
Did he give a little extra?
No, that won't help. He says the in name reading from the Derech Hamuna, the first tale of Derech Hamuna in Hilchos Manas. The Derech Hamuna is written on the Rambam. Right? It's like a Mishnah Berurah, but instead of being on the Shulchan Aruch, it's on the Rambam. The top is the Rambam, and then he has the Derech Hamuna part is like Mishnah Berurah, Bir Halacha, which is like the Bir Halacha, and then the Tzion Halacha is patterned after the Mishnah Berurah, and it's on the Rambam in Hilchos Azram. So the Hilchos Manas Parak Ches in the Tziyunim Kuf Chafal. He says the name of the Havali Kabbalah Gabi. If we'll say like this tzad, which I just said that it's Baliyat Gabi, in Kei Osir Lovos Misham, O Lifrot Misham Maos, or even to change money. To exchange money, you want to change it with a $5 bill, you go to the Pushka and put a $5, take a $5. You can't do that, but leave just like a bond, unless you give a call to your holidays, whatever. When the guy has to, he gives you shus, but otherwise you couldn't do it. This is what Chaim says. Now, and there's a little more to it, we'll get to, but so far he says you can do it. Now, okay, so we'll start with that. There's another side of the story though. Not everyone agrees that the Pushka's Kona. Why not? It seems to be pretty clear. We learned Simon Reish, we learned the halacha here, and we learned the halacha Simon Reish what the Kelim Kona, and we learned in Hilchos Staka that once it's Bali Gaba, you can't do anything with money. So the other side though is a number of Achronim say differently, or at least Achronim draw on some svaras of earlier achronim to say differently. For example, the Nesivas here on this halacha, which we learned, the Simon Reish, where the Shach says, even if the Moshe didn't say Mefurish Leichel Knei, he just gave Rishus to leave it there. He says, Zog the Nesivas that no, it's different here. Or see nothing about the Pushka. The Nesivas disagrees with the Shach. He says that which the Shach says, Hu Adin and Nasim Rishus Lanichel, it works. Udaloka Ramah. So the Nesivas in Sifkantes, I personally hold that the emes is with the Ramah. The halach is like the Ramah is correct here, not the Shach, that he's not Kohen, and he has a longer riches, but his point is that he basically, like Baskani holds like the Ramah that with the keli of the when the keli of the Lukeach is in the Shus of the Mocher, it requires that the Mocher should tell him, be Kohen. If the Mocher simply puts it there because he's planning on selling things, he says, okay, he picks one, he puts it there, but he doesn't specifically say that he's allowing him or he's willing that the person should be Kohen by the thing being put in the keli, then he's not. That's the sheet of the Nesivas. But first, not like the Shach. He's arguing with the Shach. And he's defending the position of the Ramah, or Meir later, that the Shach is Dochas. It's not, the Halacha Nesivas says, and he's all the reasons why he says that is the Halacha. So
he says in general halacha. He's saying in general.
Yeah, general.
Anytime you put a keli in someone's rishus, you have to specifically say.
Right. In order for him to be kohen with it, he has to say he has to say that he's nicha before he's nicha to be kohen. So based on that, says the two achronim who apply it here by our Shaila. Okay, we'll put a name in it right now. But based on this Nesivas, so some of the Chronim are masking on the Beis Yitzchak, and on the others who say that the Pushka's Chronim say, here, nobody's telling you that. It may, you have Rishus to, you gave the Rishus to put in your house, right? You took the Pushka into your house, but you didn't tell the Mosid anytime Leich Kni, you never made a statement to the Mosid, go be Kohen this quarter or this $20 bill. So according to that, you shouldn't be Kohen. That's one side. And another tzad, which the Avnei Nezer says, another reason to say the Pushka might not be Kohen, is that how does it work? How even if it's going to work tzad the Keli, it's going to work through a concept of zechia, that the Chatzer Shalom Zochalo, it works through a concept of shlichus. It's a form of shlichus, that it's your shliach. But you can't be zochel for Adam something which is not a schus for him, if it's a chov. And here, to a certain extent, it's a chov for the Mossad, because if you say that once it's in that can, it belongs to them, and you've already fulfilled your response. Either you gave it to the Gabbai, then you wouldn't be responsible if something happens to it that you weren't, you were a mazgir or something. If something happens to it which is not which you didn't do, you are a mazgir anyway, you wouldn't be responsible for it, and they would lose out. If it's just that you designated, it's either you made it there, you designated to give it to them, but Kolzman in the Pushka, it's not theirs, it's still your money which has just been designated to give to them. And by putting the Pushka, you're saying, I'm pledging $20, I put $20 in the Pushka, that's a pledge to give $20, but if it's not theirs, then you're still responsible for it. I mean, if it gets lost, so you have to fulfill your nether with the light. You have to take another $20 bill out of your pocket. But if you're going to say it belongs to them and it gets lost, then it's going to be their loss. So they wouldn't want that. The Aniyim or the Mosa wouldn't want that. It's not to their advantage that the money in the Pushka should be theirs before it actually comes to their hands, because they're not in control of it and something can happen to it and then they'll lose out. So it's to their advantage that it not be theirs yet. Memela says the Avnei Nezer, so then he would not be Kohen. They would not be Kohen. So those are two svaras to say differently than the Sitzchak and the other Achronim who say it is Kohen. Now, the son-in-law of the Beis Yitzchak, Rabbi Nassim Levin, wanted to say as far to defend the psak of his father, the Beis Yitzchak, at least to answer the first kasha. right? The first kasha means that he's saying the first kasha basis like is Tainach like the Shach maybe, but if you didn't see this, pass like the Ramah, it would not be true. So he wanted to say no. The Psak of the basis is true even like the Nesivus, even like the Ramah. Why? Because he wanted to say that in a case where either it's a Dvar Mitzvah, that's one sort to say that you don't need, even the Ramah would agree, that you don't need Leichukni. Leichukni is by regular people. But when you're putting something there, which it's a mitzvah to do, you become a mitzvah by giving this. So there, it's either there's an umdana that it's as if you said Leichukni. It's you don't need the actual Leichukni. Even the Nesivus, even the Ramah would agree. And particularly when the mocher, in this case the malabas, he's like the mocher, right? It's like I'm the mocher and the stock is the lokeach. When the mocher is nisayeya, it's not just that the lokeach left the clay there and says mocher is fine, but the mocher actually, he did it. He took it. Like here, you took the pushka and you set it up in your house and you encouraged it, you allowed it, but you took this pushka into your house. You didn't have to, but you took it willingly and set it up in your house. So when you're physically involved in setting up the keli, then it says also the bina machlokas, and everyone would agree that it's kei hareze ka'omer lechukni. It's keilu yiseh lechukni. So it's all, he says. This is brought what I'm telling you now is brought in the Sefer called Sharet Tzedek in Perik Yud Gimel Ha'or Yud Gimel. He says, quoting from this Rabbi Nassim Levin in his Sefer Beis Nadiv, where he writes Kol Nidar Aposkin Hu Megavna the Keilu Hani B'Mikra. It happened to be B'Mikra. Aber B'Kupos and some B'Kviyas for a Shuso. The Gahu Atzmo Nisasek B'Kviyasam Harezika Omer Leichu Kli B'Klizeh. So, but the Sefer says an interesting thing. But if we're going to say that, and it's only, assuming we want to be kosher, for the Nesivus, that it doesn't work automatically just because the Mocha put it there. It's only, the only reason it works here is because it's Ke'ilu, he himself put it there, it's there, the Kri is not the Mikra, and he himself put it there. So he wants to say, let's say you have, it's Erev Yom Kippur, and a lot of people put down pushkas or some sort of box or plates on the shulchan in the shul for kaparas money. They want, or something happens Purim, right? People put down money, collecting for this one, collecting for that one, and they put things there. Says those won't have to start. Those are listed in the mikra, or not. Or these aroi, they're there one day and then they go. They're not there because it's not. It's like the pushka of the shul or a pushka in your house that's there all the time. It's not there all the time. And they weren't the shul also like the or not the shul here. The person who put the money in, it's not his pushka altogether, right? In your house, you brought in the pushka and you put it down in your, on your mantle or whatever. So okay, and then you put the money in. So that we have the sorrow of the of Rav Nassim Levin. But here's not that way. I put the money in the pushka that I don't know, somebody put this pushka down in here, and it's not the bikvias, and it's, so he says there these stars multiply. So, okay, so he said, okay, but what, he's ma'ora, because on Erev Purim, right, when we do Machzah Shekel, or Zeichel Machzah Shekel, it's very common, you see it all over the place, right? The shul will have $3 silver, or $3 half dollars, whatever, and they take them together, and people go and they want to be kind of the midst of giving Zeichel Machzah Shekel, giving $3 half dollars, so they put down some money, whatever they're giving, they kona that, and then they put it back. Right? They take it and they put it back. So he says, but who's koning it back? Let's say the first person who did it. First person was koning it. When you put it back in the plate, so we're assuming that like the plate is koning it back for the Mossad, but he says, but it's not true. It might not be. If we need the svara that the reason why he works, even if he Nesivus, is because it's their bikvius and the mocher himself is hosting it. That's not the case here. So he says maybe it doesn't work. The first person to pick them up and then he puts them back, it could be they still belong to him. And the next person comes along who's he koning from? We think that it belongs to the shul, or it belongs to whoever is the sponsor of these Machzah Shekel.
The das doesn't matter.
Right, it doesn't matter because well, unless the person would put it down and say, maybe if the person would say that, but I don't know, I never thought of that.
It's on our nusach.
Exactly. You know, we have one person after coming and doing, nobody does. So you just borrow this, that the might throw a little. Now, of course, if you hold like the shach, you don't need that. Right? No, this is all to defend that the basis should be as to help and even feed and deceive. If you hold like the shach, it would make a difference anyway, but an interesting heart. Okay, Al Kapanim, Lamaisa, most posts can go along with the Mahalach of the, or many posts, I should say, at least, go along with the Mahalach of the Sitzla, then the Hebrew, then it says this as well. The Marsha brings down like this in a tshuva, that the Pushka is Kohen. That the Pushka is Kohen of the money, and it belongs, right away belongs to the Moshe. So we said before, Reb Chaim Kanievsky said with that, you not only can't you borrow the money, but you can't even change it with other money. So in the Sefer Tzedakah Mishpat, or Blai, he wants to be cholik with Reb Chaim on that. He wants to say, even if we'll grant that the Pushka's Kohen, and he also brings all this right in the Pushka's Kohen, even so though, he wants to say that to change the money would be fine, because there's absolutely no hakpada whatsoever. The Mossad is not makbid whatsoever if you change the money, you take change, you put in a $5 bill and take out, especially if you give a little bit more, like was mentioned before. They have no hakpada in that whatsoever. And in fact, I would ask, I think I should say usually, often, you don't end up even giving in the contents of the pushka or the pushka itself. I know I do usually, is it just at the end write out a check. I take the money, and the Gabbai has told me that that's fine, perfectly the Gabbai, at least for local Gabbai, for Meir Balnes, that at the end you weren't ready to give it in, so count it out and give me a check, and fine. It's probably easier for him. He doesn't have to deal with the quarters and the nickels and the dimes and the bills and everything. So b'chlal, that money, I don't know how we'll look at it. Maybe even if say that the Mossad was Kohen, but the Mossad has not the Gabbai. Okay, we have Rishus Gabbai. Even I said before, we kind of said unless you have Rishus Gabbai, so we have Rishus Gabbai. Yeah, but so l'chora, what's the difference if I just do it one time before I give it in, or along the way I also change it? Either way, that money is not ending up. Those coins and those bills in the pushka are not ending up in the hands of the Mossad anyway. So l'chora, that should be okay. And Reb Chaim himself says in the same place that I quoted, he says, "They know a Talmud lahalvos or lifrot." Well, let me step one before. Reb Chaim gives an eitzah, which the Tzedakah Mishmur also recommends, that tov lahas sheyasne kishetol sakupa she'ein rosh shakupa. Tigna says, make it tonight the opposite. When I'm putting this money, I am not being maknid. Specifically, not being maknid. I don't want to be maknid the money. I want it to still be my money. It's just miyuchad. It's just like a reminder. It's just a way of being mafresh. I'm mafresh the money if it's stuck, but it's not yet given to the Gabbai. So then you can do what you want, right? Then it's like we learned before in Rishon Test, Yerodei Sif Aleph, Kol Zman Lo Bali Ad Gabbai. You could borrow it, you could change it. So Chaim says it's kedai to make it tonight. And then he says, and if you're knowing, if the minig is, or if knowing Tamid Lahalmos, the Livro, Efshin Dahaliki Ilu Hisna. If you always do it before you came to the shir, and then you realize that there was even an issue. You've been doing it already, and you constantly do it. So it could be it's kilu hisna. Even if you go home tonight, you don't think about it, you put something in the pushka and you say, oh, I did it again. I put money, it wasn't masa, I just served a share, I should be masa, it wasn't masa. It could be it's kilu hisna, because and I would say, what I just said before, that especially if you have no intention of giving this money to the Gabbai at the end of the day, all you're going to do at the end is count it up and give him a check anyway. So then that's l'charavad ki'ilu hisna, right? Ki'ilu hisna, that you're not being makna in the coins. Now the question would be though, if you make this tonight, so how does that impact your achayis? So let's first talk about that tonight. Let's say no tonight, you just put the money into the pushka, and it is a pushka that you fill it up. When it's full, you call the Gabbai, and he collects the pushka. He comes and picks up the pushka, and that's it. I don't want to deal with the counting the money and stuff. I just fill up a pushka, and when it's full, the Gabbai collects it for me. So that money, if many days belongs to his Bali Gabbai, I'm not allowed to take money out of there. I'm certainly not allowed to borrow from it, and according to Chaim Kanievsky, I can't even change the money. So what happens now if that money gets lost? What happens if there's a gneva and the pushka is stolen? Unfortunately, this has happened from stores and places like that where they have pushkas out sometimes on the ground. I hesitate to put money in those pushkas because I've seen more than once cases where they get, they're stolen. In your own house, hopefully it's not. Hopefully you want to, but in the store, there's so many people coming in and out, and there's only so much that the cashier, the different workers can keep their eyes on the Pushka. So sometimes I see they have them like chained, like locked down. Okay, in any case, but let's say the Pushka gets stolen. So what is the din? Are you responsible for that money, or you're not responsible for that money? So I want to turn to Choshen Mishpat in Shin Aleph. It's in Shin Aleph, which is in the middle of Hilchos Pikadon. Shin Aleph If Vav says the following. Mi shefidu etzlo mos aniyim. A person that somebody gave him a pikadon, mos aniyim. Please watch this money on behalf of the aniyim. Upasha b'hem. He was negligent. V'nignevu. It was stolen. Potter. He's a potter. Why? Shenemar l'shmor. The pasuk says ki yitain ish l'reyehu kesav okelim l'shmor, to guard. V'guna b'beisu ish. So then he has to take a shur, whatever it is. He says. It's immediate in the pasuk. Only when it's l'shmar. This wasn't given me l'shmar. It was given. His money was assuming it was given to me to be mechalik. Somebody gave me money to give out to an idiot. Right? Sometimes that happens. Somebody says, favor, I have some stuff money. Would you know someone to give it to? I said, so here's the money. Give it out to an idiot. So that's not. He didn't give me kesef l'kelim l'shmar. He gave me kesef l'chalik. So it's a diuk in the pasuk. This is Chazal's diuk that Chazal's Rasha that you put is no chiyuv shmira, and then a second factor b'harehu mamach ein lo tovim. There's no tovim because it's not meant for a specific ani or for a specific group of aniyim. It's in general aniyim for whoever. So the Shach explains that what the Mechaber is saying is that it's a twofold thing. I'm sorry, not the Shach, the Sma. The Sma says, Pater v'dichsiv l'shmar v'lo l'chalik, v'tzanoloma lo chiva ha'torah, ki in kishabiyad l'bali yad b'tor shmira. D'hainu shishmirenu lo b'yad l'zman. L'zman ma. And then return. V'achar kach zirei l'yadu. That's where you have. Masha enke, mom is that. D'hanosna b'yad l'shmar, ain't a road to Shesur. I didn't give it to you to give back to me. Rather, to distribute it. Okay, but rather to distribute. Okay, now, so he says, "Vim tomar ikein yezesh shomer shalim." So they say, okay, so you're not a shomer for the guy who gave it to you, but you're a shomer for the aniyim. He gave it to you to give him. So maybe you should be chayiv on the money because you're still a shomer to the aniyim. On that, the Shulchan Aruch says, "Al zeh ka'amar shu mamach ein lo tovim, shari lo nitel liyad l'chal kol aniyim miyuchadim." That's called mamach ein lo tovim. There's nobody who can claim the money from me. There's nobody who can claim money from me, and therefore I don't have a chiyuv. At least not bidei adam. I don't have a chiyuv to return it to anyone.
But if it's for a specific foundation or for a specific aniyim,
yes.
then you have.
Yes, if it's specific aniyim, then they could theoretically be tovei for you, and then you're a shomer for them, and then it would go into regular hilchos shomer. Now, even so how do they get lost? You're only a shomer chinam, right? You're not getting paid to watch it. You're not benefiting from watching it. So you're shomer chinam. So then we get into the regular halachas of a shomer chinam, who's also pater from gnei v'vavedas as long as he wasn't posher. If he wasn't posher, the only thing is then we get complicated because technically he has to take a shvur. If shomer chinam claims gnei v'aveda, he has to take a shvur. And nowadays, personally, I might not want to take a shvur, but we wouldn't even let him take a shvur. Basically, doesn't administer shvuras anymore. So then there will be a shalos. So what do you do in a case where you need to take a shvur to be pater and you can't take a shvur? So you'd have to, speak to the dayan exactly how to proceed in a case like that. This happens a lot in Beis Din. There are a lot of cases in Beis Din where the halacha is almost like black and white, that the person's pater, but he has to take a shvur. Shvur is hesses. Often the shvur is hesses. Often some shvur is shomer, shvur the right, completely shvur is hesses. Push the case of cover kol, right? Cover kol, or cover kol. Ruben says she knows the money. She realized the whole thing. Most Michabel Varaya, proven cover call. Okay, and Chami. But you have to take a short, with Rabbanon. Or a short says, you can't take a short. So now what? If you can't take a short, so are you still Potter or are you Chayav? So I don't want to, take that further right now, but you didn't have different ways of dealing with that situation. So that's why Shiloh would have to be asked here, but that's what the issue is. Inherently, you should be. So I'm saying number one, if you're just a shomer to, if you're just holding it in general for no one specific, then even if we're going to say, so then we'll say two things. Then we'll say you're not it's lechalik, lechalik, and you're holding lechalik as v'amshem l'tovim. And even if you are holding it for a specific, give it to this person, and you're a shomer, but very possibly you're shomer chinam, and then as long as you weren't posheya, then we just get the halacha. What do you do nowadays with a shomer chinam who wasn't posheya, but he can't take a short? If the person was posheya and he was holding a specific money, then it's all a different story. That shomer chinam is chayiv umshiyah. So the different story they talk about this, this case, what to do if it's stolen or lost. And we touched on the Yesodas. Another, let's say maybe more, I don't know if it's more common, but a case that could happen in the house, and this definitely has happened sometimes, is what happens if you have more than one pushka, and the money ends up spilling out, and you don't know what's what. You don't know. Someone just called me a couple of weeks ago. His grandchildren were playing around with pushkas, and and now he has pushka for this most, and this most, and now he has a bunch of coins or bills or whatever it is on the table, and he doesn't know what's what. So there's a psak from the Chazon Ish that a number of the from Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky says is over another. Apparently this happened once. Rabbi Chaim says it happened by Rabbi Zarek Shapiro, the Bnei Brak Yid, who was the Gabbai who was in charge there, and the pushkas that mix. So he asked the Chazon Ish. So the Chazon Ish said 50-50, split it down the middle. That's what it said. It doesn't bring any svaras or doesn't tell us any background, just says 50-50, and that's the way they bring over from Chaim. In fact, this Sefer, the word here, Orech Tzedakah, brings this in the Tshuvas in the back from Chaim Kanievsky. That's what he says, that just split it down the middle. In the same Tzedakah Mishpat says something which I hear a little better, but it's circumstantial, it depends on the case. What he says is, this is in Paraches Harachafei, Naflu Kupos Keset Nispazer, the Emi Odea Kama Hea Kupazev Kama Cheres, you don't know how much was in each one. Nearly Sheyochel Lechalad Lefi Omed Daito. So you make a note of that, meaning to say, if he's saying a kula here that you shouldn't have to, be mashing from your pocket to say, okay, I'll give this one, I don't know, might have had, 80% of the money might have been this. I know we're not 100%, but it could be 80%. So maybe you have to be mashlim to the other one. The other one had, okay, so you'll give it 20%. Maybe you have to be mashlim the difference. It says no. Nearly that you can go with the omedaito, but you figure that if you think that this one has more, you typically put more, or you happen to know recently this one much heavier, etc. So it says if you typically do it evenly, then you chalik with your kupos. Then it's like the Chazon Ish said. On the Miyodeh, should the kupa Messiah is no saying Yosef. If you never know, you give a lot more to this one than that one. So you think Bezu Yosef with your own, and then you should put more. Put more of it into your own and try to make hashar. But it seems you don't have to do more than that. You're not clear to do more than that. He also doesn't explain the basis. Maybe this is based again on the idea. It says in Spazru. It doesn't say you, like you or Pershe. Maybe you. I think this is what you're saying before. Maybe look, I have these kupas there. I don't do anything, and I'm only taking a certain degree of akragas. And if something happened and they spilled, they know that also. The Moshes know that also. When they're giving pushkas, it's like hakol reva. So okay, now there's still halachas that dictate the din. And like I say, if we're going to go with the Sitzvah and the Netziv and the Rasham and the Tshuva, that the chatzor, that the pushka is a chatzor which is kona on behalf of the Mossad, so then there are din on it. We can't. It's not. It's not just I'm the big tzaddik here that's helping them out. So whatever I do is all okay. That's not true. We learned already. You can't take the money out once you put it there. You can't borrow it. You can't borrow the money. But and even taking change was the shayla. Chaim said it's not so much that they change, but that already, if it's with no negligence of your own, they somehow got this pazu. So maybe then you say, okay, so then I'm not a chroi. I'm not a chroi in the money. So I'm not a chroi. So the logical thing to do is split it up the way it would seem to be, make it under, and hopefully that you're within range. And but you putter anyway. You're not chayav. I think it has to be based on that, because if you be chayav, so then why wouldn't you have to, replace it? And it's not even a shame token. It belongs to a specific mosad. So I'm not reminded. Okay. Just is there any other kudos that I want to mention? All right, that was most of it. Al Kapanim, I just want to say also that the Sefer of Tzak brings down also from Rosh Hashanah Arba, holds that it is mutter. It's mutter even to borrow from the Pushka. Now, he doesn't say why. He doesn't say whether it's Rosh Hashanah. He doesn't say why. I don't know if Rosh Hashanah is going with the days that hold that it's not a chatzar, not called like you said the Avnei Nezer for it. If you see this, I don't know if he holds that, or if he holds that maybe even to borrow is like there's an umdana that they were allowed. Maybe again, the Lord just said, look, I'm doing them a favor, so to speak, by putting the money in. So as long as you take, you're an responsible person. At the end of the day, you're gonna make a strong effort to make sure they get the money. So if you want to borrow in the meantime, that you can. Al Kapan, the better thing to do certainly is if you need to take money out, you need cash for the babysitter or whatever, put a check in. Put a check in, a good check, not just a little note, a little piece of paper saying I owe, but because then you're borrowing it. So that you shouldn't do. What you should do is. Because in other words, just to conclude, we should be chashiv the sheet that is considered bali ad gabai, and if it's bali ad gabai, so then even if we're gonna say that they're not makbid on your taking change, but borrowing the money ready, it's not so pashut. It says the first shulchan aruch bali ad gabai, you can't borrow it. So if you need the cash, so at least put in a check for the money. That much we can assume that there's no hakpad in that, and especially like I said, if eventually, ultimately, it's going to go to the guy who's a check anyway, then it's a double pasha. You can do that. Put in a check rather than just putting a little note saying, "Oh, you're putting a good valid check." Even if at the end of the day you're not going to give him that check, you'll eventually, rip that up and give a bigger check for the whole thing. But in the meantime, they have a valid check for the money, and so then you are mafsed them at all. And like we said, and like Yaakov mentioned before, it's always good to add a little. Also, when you do that, so we add a drop to the amount.
What's the status of Pushka money that's in the shul? Same thing?
Yeah, basically the same thing. There's one slight sort, maybe different, that some say shul doesn't have it in Chatzar, but Pasha is the same thing. Okay, I'm going to send out the message. Okay. Ready?